This is Abnormal Entertainment.
2, 3, 4. Walked into the tunnel just to find the light. Hunted for old demons, looking for a fight. Looked up at the stars, seemed to go forever. There must be a way, it all fits together. Fell into the quicksand, held on to the vines. Never could quite color, stay within the lines. Feels like I have wings, I can fly wherever. This is just a way, it all fits together. Finally saw the world through rose-colored glasses. Gonna share my journey to small and large masses. Give up on my life, no sir, me never. This is how I put it together. This is how I put it together. This is how I put it together.
Hey everybody, this is Daniel Garza and welcome to another episode of Put It Together. I'd like to start as usual thanking my producer, Mr. Kevin Memorias, for all his help and support. Thank you, sir. Inviting everybody to check us out at abnormalentertainment.com where you can find all the shows on the network. So go check that out. At the end of the show, I'll give you all the links and where you can find all of the other shows that we've had. I'm sure you can find something that'll interest you. And let's get started today. I'm really excited to be here at the Wall Las Memorias project with Julio, Jordi, and Angela. That's right. And we'll give you your last names and titles in just a second. But I originally found out about these guys because I was part of another project and I came in to shoot a video. And Angela was the liaison between it. So when I got here and I met you, I realized that you were an agency. Like, oh, you have an agency here. And oddly enough, I had not heard about you guys. I thought I knew everything. But oh, no. You guys were hiding from me. So we coordinated and we got to come over here and do a show with you guys. Good morning.
Good morning.
How are you guys doing? Don't look so scared. It's all good. I always tell everybody this is the most chill show you'll ever be on because it's really relaxed. But let's start. I do want to give a little bit of description about the agency, what it does. Who would like to take over that?
For the agency?
Yeah, just a little information.
Yeah, sure. The agency has been around for actually almost 25 years. We're also very known for having the first fairly funded HIV. It's a monument that commemorates the victims and that have passed away from HIV and AIDS and their families. So there's a big monument in Lincoln.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so it's in the process of getting renewed. Hopefully by next year it's going to be renovated.
Nice.
Also, we are an agency that seeks to incorporate youth in any underserved community into providing leadership skills and linkage to resources, along with HIV prevention, mental health, and substance abuse.
Got it. So let's start with Julio Ramos Beltran. You are the wellness specialist.
Yes.
Here at Las Memorias is how it's commonly known, right? Or is it the Wong? The Wong? Is it? Okay, because when I was like, it's Las Memorias, and people were like, where's that? I'm like, I don't know. So Julio, wellness specialist. What does a wellness specialist do?
Basically, we do community organizing and around basically young Latino men that have sex with men in the ages of 18 through 24. And I'm in charge of a program called the React Now Project. And this is basically a community effort to include, to really involve young Latino MSM, men that have sex with men, with community partners in creating this ongoing work plan in which you go through a needs assessment and use these folks that are interested. You train them and become peer advocates and have them going to get involved in the community. And through social media platforms like Facebook, they get to create a Facebook, recruit people, pass out information, everything online.
Oh,
and
wow.
if anybody needs testing, all the community leaders are knowledgeable on where to get that. And also how to become a community leader as well. So everything is becoming an online platform, and
Right.
especially Facebook, because everybody has Facebook at the palm of their hand at all times. So if any of the people that they recruit have a question of where to get tested, where to get counseling, where to get any community resource, they can go to one of our trained community leaders, get that information there. Get them linked to care, and just build a resume and have all this.
Nice.
Give and take with community members, community partners, and the agency as well.
So there's a lot of education
There's a
involved.
lot of education. Like this is very, and not only education for the community leaders, but also for the community partners. So we provide trainings on literacy, like maybe like on community partners how to deal better with the young Latino population of gay and bisexual men or queer men.
Right. Okay, Julio, and how did you climb the wall per se?
Well, and this is how I put it together. Pretty much. I have a BA in Central American Studies from Cal State Northridge, and it's a very tiny program, the only program in the whole nation, and it's very focused on community work. So ever since I was at the university, I started working with, for example, the Central American Resource Center, and mostly working with Central American immigrants. And that led me to, one thing led to another, and I ended up working in mental health, being a rehab specialist and behavior modification interventionist. And I had never worked in an LGBT organization before, but the opportunity presented, and I applied, and I think I was able to merge the knowledge that I had on immigrant communities to my own experience as a queer man. So this has been a very refreshing experience because I started doing faith work and working with faith leaders. So you can imagine for a queer man going into a Catholic church, like, hey, let's talk about HIV and how can we
Let's talk about sex, Father.
Yeah. It wasn't necessarily the easiest of tasks, but we've been able to see like the folks are very supportive, are extremely supportive and welcoming. So I guess that was a really interesting thing to see how we grew up with this idea of having like church being a place that if you're a gay man you cannot go in. If
right.
You're certain
I was about to ask that. Yeah.
You cannot go in. And going to knocking on these doors, and yes, we got rejections. Of course, not everybody is at the same process of understanding and being accepting. But the folks that were, it was incredible. Like their willingness to have us over and have this presentations, this HIV 101s, and creating ministries, HIV ministries, when folks get educated and keep resources and they keep calling us back. So that was very refreshing and to a certain extent very healing for me, knowing that there are for folks that need spaces in which they can practice their faith, that they can do it and they can do it freely.
I'm so glad you said that because I was raised Catholic, and I was very fortunate that my family was not the kind that God hates everything. It's that God loves you and He will find your way, like whatever. Because I was not a very normal child. I'm not a normal adult anyway. So, but it's really nice that it's good that you said that because it's going to break down that myth that religion and sexuality and sex can't be in the same conversation. What have you learned through the process?
Through the process of like
of merging
into here,
everything,
one, to always be open-minded, to always keep an open mind, to give folks the benefit of the doubt. Like, let's have a conversation and let's see where this takes us. I've also learned that the opposite of the spectrum, like understand when you can no longer change a person's mind, and understand like here we're gonna agree to disagree at this point, because then it just keep escalating. And also how to be very mindful and respectful of other communities that I may not immediately understand or may not be immediately knowledgeable. Just keep an open mind. Like, let me hear you out. Let me meet you where you are. And just like, if I'm not, this compromise for both in a human level more than anything.
Right. Isn't it? It's funny because I'm 47. I've been advocating for almost 18 years now, and I find it funny that sometimes I'm more close-minded than the people that I want to reach. Have you found that sometimes people are hungry for education, but we're the ones that, for lack of better pun intended, put up that wall?
Yeah. And it's not necessarily because we don't want it, the education, so sometimes we don't know how to ask for it. And even when we get that information, we don't know how to process it correctly. I always encourage folks, like, if you get a chance to go to a support group or get a chance to like really expose yourself and get out of your comfort zone and just be willing to listen. Sometimes like as you listen to people that have different experiences than yours, you realize that there are more parallels and there are more things in common that you think. And we may not experience, for example, oppression in the same way, but we both feel oppression. We can both relate at that, basic level of like, being a community that's oppressed.
What was the first thing that pushed you out of your comfort zone in your advocating, in your work?
Perhaps
as he laughs.
Being very visibly queer has always been one of those things. You walk into a room and immediately, if I'm going to give a presentation, I was like, yes, my head is this big, I do move my head, my voice sounds like this. I'm like, it is also like, let's get over that, let's get past that, and let's focus on the information and the things that we can learn from each other. And I welcome questions too, sometimes like people have questions about me or my life or my sexuality or whatever it is. And it's like, I within reason, I try to welcome them and for them to feel free to ask whatever they need to, they feel like they're asking a safe space, in a way that like if they make a boo-boo, I'd rather than make them here than go out and, do that. So like that pushes me out of my comfort zone to like just expose or like be more open to that kind of environment that, as opposed to being like, I'm just here to like either, HIV 101, for example, and not, infuse away anything in my experience. For being afraid of being asked, well, what about you? What have you?
Yeah. One of the things that I did very early on was tell people when I walked in, I was like, okay, everybody say penis, everybody say vagina. And now that we got that out of the way, we can move on with it, because that's the worst thing you're going to hear in this class. So, yeah. What would you like to see? Because I'm guessing you work majority with the Latino Hispanic community. Mm-hmm. Yeah. What would your goal be? What would you like to see the Latino community go as far as HIV and AIDS education?
Personally, I would just having the conversation. Having that difficult conversation that, we are bombarded by sex everywhere in media. So we don't talk about how to do it responsibly. We don't talk about like consequences. Of course, it's a beautiful experience, but it can have the consequences. And the reality is that we are living in a day and age in which it's necessary for us to talk about, have that conversation about coming from a place of compassion and understanding and knowledge, as opposed to fear and myth and, help because we want to help, not because we feel like we have to help. Mm. So that's ultimately where I would want to see the conversation of HIV among Latino communities.
What would be somebody's listening, watching, and they're a Hispanic man who's afraid to come out or afraid to get tested, who's afraid, what would your message be to him?
Well, at first, fear it's very valid. We all feel fear, but it also there is a little way so you can empower each other and empower yourself by, for example, getting tested is a big way to getting empowered, because now if you have that doubt and if you have that fear, it's because you might feel like in your head, inside of you, like something might not be wrong. That's just a perfect way to take ownership and to really take empowerment on your status and your health. And say, like, if whatever it is, I know now, and I can proceed in a smart way, as opposed to staying in the dark, staying in fear that it's not going to be, productive to you or to anybody around you. So just empower yourself in little ways every day, little by little. Do it by your own time. Have your own goals. Be faithful to you and be truly who you are.
Y un mensaje en español para la gente que está escuchando, algo que les puedes decir.
Pues que el empoderarse uno mismo es de a poquito, es un proceso, pero hay cosas que podemos hacer de cada día. Por ejemplo, si tenemos alguna duda, hacernos un examen, por ejemplo, tratarse bien todos los días, decirme me quiero yo, voy a salir adelante, tener metas pequeñas, pero que se metas pequeñas pero alcanzables.
Claro. So what message would you have for you when you first started working here? What would you tell yourself you go back in time?
If I go back in time...
Like Julio, right before he walked in on his first day of work, and you stop him at the door, you go, before you walk in, Julio, I've come back in time to tell you this.
Probably just always... The sooner I would have learned to keep an open mind, I think my process would have been a lot easier. But also just be aware of all the amazing people you're gonna meet. I guess it's a difficult work. It's not always easy. But having the support of a great team also makes it a lot more. It makes it a better job. So I just keep an open mind about the people you're gonna meet.
Sorry, dry mouth there, guys. So before we moved on, again, telling people who you are, your title, and how can they find you.
My name is Julio Ramos Beltran. I am a wellness specialist at the Memorias, and you can find me at the website thewellnessmemorias.org, or my email is julio.ramos@twlmp.org.
And why would people want to contact you?
Well, if they want to be part of, we're going to get involved in the community. If they need any additional support, we do have the support group here for gay and bisexual men every Tuesday. I'm one of the facilitators, so if you need any kind of support, resources, I can help you out with that. If not, we can direct you to our community partner that can give you the service that you need.
Excellent. Thank you. We'll come back to you in just a minute. Next, hi.
Hello.
Jordi Seren, is that you there? I want to say it in Spanish, Seren. And you are community advisor.
Sure. I was a community advisory board member for the Transcending Systems program here at the Wallace Memorias.
Explain to us what that program is.
Sure. So Angela was one of the founders of the program. You can probably explain it better than I can.
Okay. Well, before we move on, then tell us, how did you come? I'm putting my hand in front of it.
Sure.
How did you come to the wall?
Sure.
And how do you put it together?
Absolutely. Goodness. So I've known Angela, since 2012, maybe 2011. It's been a while.
Okay.
So I guess my relationship to the wall. So I've worked. My background is in film and television, actually.
Oh.
And so I went to film school, and so that's part of my background. I'm now actually just this past year started to go back to school to be a clinical psychologist. Actually.
Congratulations.
Working with LGBT people. Thank you. So that's kind of a shift in my background. But I've really been interested in using my my skills in film and television and storytelling to further, issues that relate to LGBT people and particularly trans people. And so I've worked on now, I just did a video for the Transcending Systems program for the Wall. I think it's been my third video. But anyway, using my skills to be able to not just, to voice both sort of my own feelings of wanting to make things better for LGBT folks and for transgender people, and for also using my skills to make the programs here at the Wall more visible, and to help kind of spread the word as much as I can through my own capacity for the programs here at the Wall.
What was your personal need to use the Wall?
Sure. So,
by the way, I love that name. I love you saying that. How did you come to the Wall?
How do you come to the Wall? Exactly. Totally. So, I guess my perspective. So, I think the Wall does a really great job at utilizing it's a very community level organization, which is what I really like about it. And there's, of course, lots of other agencies, fortunately in the LA area, that serve, underserved populations, particularly LGBT folks. But I feel like the Wall is just really, in my experience of the Wall and the work that happens here, it's very ground level, and it's very focused on what community members need. And that was one of the things that I really loved about the Transcending Systems program, and particularly being a community advisory board member, is looking at literally what we did as part of our meetings for the Community Advisory Board, was to look at what can we do really at the most basic kind of grassroots level to make the program as successful as it can be. One of the things that I was a big part of was we did a questionnaire for each of the participants who were part of the program to...
Oh, that's me, sorry.
Oh, no worries. Make sure I'm not talking to her.
Ah,
No worries.
there you go.
But so I was saying we did a questionnaire to sort of get a sense of not just the demographics and sort of who are the people who were the participants in the program, but to I think part of it was really using the opportunity that we had with such a great diversity of people coming to the program to learn more, not just about who they are, but what the program could do for them. And so part of what I thought was really great about that particular project that the Community Advisory Board did was to, we were really like at really a basic level changing not just the wording of the questions on the questionnaire, but example, doing things like adding, like a fill in the blank, for instance. So like, I'm trying to think of like what a specific question was, but like, the point being sort of to make sure that even just in how the questions were worded on our questionnaire, to be able to give people the opportunity to fill in their own experience. For instance, like there was a question of like of drug use, for example. And so we were trying to really sort of narrow down what are the right questions for us to ask, but we also included a fill in the blank. Like if there's something in this question that didn't make sense for you, if you're, a participant filling out the questionnaire. So.
As an advisor and I'm as a client of the wall also?
I haven't been as much of a client of the wall, but I've tried to participate in a lot of the programs here.
Okay.
So sort of tangential, I guess, more than being an actual client.
Okay. So as an advisor.
Yeah.
What was the first thing you learned? Because we as advisors or consultants, we usually walk into a situation going, I got this.
Right.
And you don't, anybody listening to this, if you're hired as a consultant, it's because you know stuff.
Right.
If you're brought in as an advisor, it's because you've experienced stuff.
Right.
But then we walk in and we sit down and we grab that paper and we're like, oh crap. I really don't know as much as I thought I did.
Right.
What was the first thing you learned?
Sure. So one of the things too that I'm really trying to keep in mind is that I know, particularly compared to a lot of the clients probably here at the Wall, I know that I do tend to be a very privileged person, and that just I happen to be white, and so
what?
Yes.
Sorry.
Yes, no. But my point though in all of that is that I do know I come from a very different background, and it's important to me to be able to use the privileges that I know that I have in a way that's going to be supportive and helpful for other people who might not be as privileged. And so certainly in my capacity as a Community Advisory Board member, that was something that was very much on my mind, and making sure that I can be as aware and making sure that I'm doing all the things that I need to do to keep myself accountable. And so in doing that, sort of with particularly, for example, the questionnaire again, a lot of, for instance, the questions that were asked is like, your HIV status, I happen to be HIV negative. What's your drug use? What's your, have you needed to use services, for housing? I fortunately have never been homeless. And so being able to do it as much that I can do to, even though I haven't had some of these experiences, to still, to be accountable and to use the privileges that I've had to help other people.
So I want to go deeper into that because that's an interesting topic. I'm going to play devil advocate for a minute and say, well, if you haven't experienced all this, what could you possibly show me that I have experienced all that?
Of course, and so this is something that I'm also learning too in my studies as a psychologist as well, or psychologist in training, is that I know that I haven't experienced a lot of the issues, for instance, that my future clients will have experienced. But I like to think of myself as being very curious and wanting to genuinely understand what someone else has been through, even if I haven't been through it myself. And, being able to be there, even just to listen. I know that my capacity to help might be somewhat limited by, in comparison if I had actually been through some of these experiences. But, to the extent that my being there to be supportive and to listen and to, to offer a helping hand is anything that's helpful, that's kind of what I want.
Well, if there's anything that I can offer in this conversation is when you have somebody listening, it's really a great resource to have where you can sort out what I have control over, what I don't, and what's not even my responsibility.
Right.
Because then it's like the give, keep, and donate pile. And once you look at the keep pile, you realize that it's so much smaller that you can handle the situation and you can move forward. So I think that my personal view on you is because you haven't, you can offer some solutions that maybe I stuck in the middle and I can't see them.
Right.
So I hope that helps along the way.
It does, thank you.
When did you start actively working with the wall?
Sure. So it must have been probably 2 years ago now. Let's see. I'm trying to think of going all the way back. So I'm trans, and once I started my transition in 2011, 2012, I really wanted to get involved in a lot of the work that other trans people, other LGBT people have been doing in the community. And so I worked with a couple different grassroots organizations like The Wall. And so I'm trying to think of how I first got involved with The Wall. It was probably 2 or 3 years ago. And I guess the first video that I did was for the mental health initiative that you guys were doing in Boyle Heights. And so that was definitely, I felt like I was very much kind of an outsider to that, but wanted to bring, like I said, as much as sort of my empathy and my wanting to understand and my bringing the skills that I have and the awareness that I hope to build and that I feel like I'm trying to build more to that. And so it was really a great opportunity to feel like, to not only to improve myself and to gain more knowledge, but to also, I was really grateful that The Wall was so supportive of my, my being there and my using my skills to be able to show off the mental health initiative that you guys were doing. So,
I'm going to ask you the same question. What would you now tell you then?
Sure. My goodness, that's a really good question. I think what I want to tell myself is that it's in some ways the kind of rabbit hole goes deeper than you thought that it would. At least for me, I'm trying to sort of, and it's an ongoing, I think, pursuit for me, is to be aware of how much I don't know. And I think in a lot of ways that lack of awareness is always bigger than you think that it is. And so if I could go back and tell myself, then what I didn't know is to, even if you think you feel like you have empathy and have a capacity for understanding and curiosity and wanting to understand more, you can always do more. Cool. And so that's really what I'm trying to do, is to make myself go out of my comfort zone. Cool.
And let people know where they can find, or can we see some of your films or some of your projects?
Sure. So a lot of them I think are through The Wall. Okay. So getting in touch with The Wall, I think, would be the best.
Okay. And how can people find you?
Sure. Well, I guess in about 3 years, once I finish my program, I'll be a marriage and family therapist.
Nice.
Sure. And I'm sure I'll be on social media by then. But they can contact me, I guess, through my email address, jserwin@antioch.edu. Antioch is where I go to school.
Awesome. And we'll give all the information online so you guys can find it. And we'll come back to you in just a minute. And now, the reason that I'm here, Angela Cristobal, I love that name. It's so novela. I love it. And I'm very novelero, so we're good. Angela, hi.
Hello.
How are you?
Good. I'm good. I'm a little nervous.
I know. I'm gonna out you here up to people. When I got here, she was just like running around, like, calm down, deep breath, Angela. Everything's good. Yeah, send, bring it all in.
Get my little garden.
Yeah, we're gonna do a meditation session before we started. So thank you for opening the doors for me. Thank you for staying in touch. I really appreciate this. So tell us who you are and what you do here at the Wall, and how you put it together.
Okay, so my name is Angela Cristobal. I am the current transgender the transgender coordinator. I had a previous coworker that was here who was doing amazing work. Her name is Johanna Padilla. Shout out to you, girl. And now that she's no longer with us, moving on to other things and other endeavors, I'm over here taking control and overseeing all of that now. I do identify as a transgender Latina. I've been transitioning for almost 6 years now. It hasn't been an easy journey for me, but I mean, I'm here. I have the amazing support of my family. I have amazing friends. I have amazing colleagues. So I feel like that's what keeps me going. It keeps me sane. It's not easy at times, but you know, it does take a toll on your mental health, spiritual health, you know, your well-being as in general. But you have to surpass that little by little every single day, and it's a challenge, and it's a daily battle, and it's a daily reminder that, you know, you are worthy, you are beautiful, you are courageous, and all of that good stuff, you know?
Awesome. Well, let's take it back a little bit. How did you climb on the wall?
So,
I love that line. I'm gonna have to use it.
So when I was going to community college, I don't know, something within me So when I first started my transition, I went to a support group at Children's Hospital Los Angeles. That's where I met a lot of the girls and a lot of people who were like in the same, like around the same age range. There was two in particular who were like facilitators of the groups. And they, like, for me, it was really eye-opening, and seeing someone that was trans, like, I didn't know about anything, like, it was just like, they were talking about HIV, STDs, and then like, we'd have lunch, and we'd have conversations about what we were experiencing, and then kind of going back to what Jordy was saying about, like, seeing my privilege at the time, because I had a home to go to, I had a family who was supportive, I had access to things that other folks didn't, and when I would go to that group, it was like a huge wake-up call. It's just like, damn, this is what my community's facing. And at that age, I was like, what, 21? And then for trans folks, I feel like it's you go through this transition before you were living this life that was imposed on you, and then once you cross over and like you make the choice to live authentically and be yourself, like it's a complete 360, because you're changing old habits that you were taught. So yeah, I was along that process. I was in that process. And at that time, I was also going to community college, and something within me found it to go and volunteer. So there was a local nonprofit that was like down the street from LACC at the time, and I went to go volunteer. I was like answering phone calls. I was like feeling my professional like receptionist. And thankfully at the time, a supervisor there saw like that I was there. I wasn't there for like to have this on my college resume or like to have it on my resume. I was there because I genuinely wanted to give back, or like just be part of a community, be part of something. Yeah. So within like I think maybe 3 weeks of me being there, he offered me a position. He asked me to apply for a CRCS position, a Comprehensive Risk Counseling Services position, and I applied, and like I went through this interview process, and like I got the job. So since then, like I've been involved within community, because I think it's important to constantly be a voice and advocate for other folks who don't have access or resources or even the voice to do it, right? Because I feel like even going back to like the trans community, we're constantly marginalized. Like there's no funding for us, you know. So how is it that transgender women of color, Marsha P. Johnson and Sylvia Rivera, started this movement, the LGBTQ rights movement, and yet we're still in the back of the bus. Like we don't have any rights. We can barely pee or shit in peace, excuse my language, but like, you know, like it's true. It's a reality that we face. You know, we're being murdered, we're being targeted, and yet just because we have gay marriage and people can get married, people think it's all peaches and cream and everyone can go home and like, you know, listen to whatever, like kumbaya songs and stuff like that, but it's not. You know, this is our reality. You know, we're impacted by HIV, we're impacted by mental health, homelessness, you know, even seeking employment. And as I mentioned before, even simply using the restroom in peace is something that we're still fighting for.
So I wanna walk people through I want people to virtually walk in your shoes for a little bit. I know people will usually say, well, tell me about your best day. Tell me about your worst day.
You know, thankfully for me, I feel like I have the privileges of going to spaces and entering them, and people, whether they question my identity or not, my gender identity or not, I'm able to just like zoom on by and like go about my day without people like mocking me, without people calling me like, hey, sir, because of how I identify, how I present myself. But I know for other folks, it's not like that. It's not as easy. You know, so for me, I feel like I've had a fairly easy like transition. But on my worst days, I feel like it's a constant battle of like reminding yourself like, hey, you know, you deserve like, actually a couple of years ago, for me, it was like a constant battle because like when I would go out, I'd be like, oh, what are people thinking about? What are they saying? Oh, what is my family gonna say? What are their cousins gonna say? Aunts, uncles, you know? So it was a kind of like, I was always telling myself that as opposed to just being like, no, fuck it, like what can I do? If they don't understand, it's not my job to make them understand. And if they want to understand, they can have a conversation with me and talk to me about whatever it is that I'm experiencing, you know? So it's taken me a long time to get there. At the end of the day, it's just like, what if someone told me, they're like, no le debes nada a la gente, you know, you don't owe them anything, you know, so by simply me living my truth and being authentic as I possibly can, that's enough within itself. So I don't know if I answered your question.
Yeah. Because you also talked about mental health. As Latinos in America, there is a mental issue there, and I don't think a lot of people have realized that, especially when you're first generation or you immigrated when you were very little. There is that first, okay, am I American, am I Mexican, what am I working with here? Then you add the gay component. As a gay man, how do I stand? Am I still a macho, Mexicano, or can I be a liberal, gay, white American? Now, in your case, we add a whole new level of it. How has your mental health journey been?
It hasn't been easy. I've also gone through like depression. I haven't been diagnosed by anyone. But my anxiety kicks in every now and then, like walking down the street. You know, it's just like you just never know. You know, sometimes when guys approach you, like for dating, for example, like sometimes they don't know, or like they're not aware that I am trans, and like it's a constant battle because like you kind of have to educate them, but then if you do educate them, like there are repercussions that they could potentially be violent towards you. So you're kind of like stuck in between. But going back to your question about mental health, yeah, it's definitely that. Like, you know, I am first generation, I'm Latina, my parents were born in Mexico, Michoacan, Mexico, shout out to Michoacan. You know, and then they came over when they were like 19, 18. But it's like, it's a constant battle, like, you know, like even like in previous sayings, like no soy de aquí, no soy de allá, you know, you're not fully Mexican, you're not fully American, you're somewhere in between, and at the same time, you know, I am trying to find myself within that, within those intersections of like of life, of identity, of sexual orientation, of like low income, you know, education, you know, access to resources that, you know, other folks have. So yeah, it's a constant battle, and like I think for me, what truly stands out and what keeps me grounded is the fact that I have a supportive family. You know, my mom is amazing, my dad is amazing, my siblings are amazing. Excuse me, and that's what keeps me going.
Yeah, because I have found, like I was saying earlier, growing up, we moved here when I was 3 years old, so I consider myself an American all along, even though I only just became a citizen a couple of months ago. Don't ask, people know about that. Don't ask. Long story. But so I was like, am I supposed to like tacos or hamburgers? Like, which one's the deal? Or can I put jalapenos in my hamburger and I'm covered by everything? And then do I speak more Spanish or do I speak more English? And then the sexuality, like I love wearing my boots, and I don't have them today, but I love wearing my boots and my caps and my t-shirts because that's my way my dad did. But I also like to dress up every once in a while and be, you know, bougie. Like, and you get caught up in all these things, and I don't think people realize that. Like, am I fully gay or am I kind of gay? Is it my boyfriend or just my partner or amigo? That's always your friend around other people. So there's a lot of mental issues that we go through in the Latino community. And then you add transitioning in whichever direction you're going, that you're going, that has to be like piles and piles of luggage that we're carrying around, not to say baggage, but luggage, because you have to carry around. Does that make sense for all of you?
Absolutely.
Anybody else want to add on to that?
I think as people of color, you're constantly carrying this baggage. Because if you're not white, if you're not cis, if you're not a man within the society in which we live in, you are not seen as equal. We know there's a huge wage gap between Latinas, African American women, Asian women. So until we find that also, like, how do you expect, or how do we expect for people who are LGBTQ to get to that point? And yes.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, so how can we expect for LGBTQ plus folks to get to that point when we haven't even got it together for people who identify as cisgender?
Before I jump into the group questions, I totally blanked because I was getting all like, "Tu radio, raza." Going back to before your transition started, what would you tell you?
I would tell myself to be more vocal. Honestly, I feel like as Latinos, as women, as trans women, I've learned that we usually get the short end of the stick. And sometimes we have to have these uncomfortable conversations. We have to call people out. We have to keep people accountable. We have to be as transparent as possible. So when that happens, we need to make sure that we are vocal about what it is that we're asking for and what we're advocating for, and keeping in mind that it's not just about us. Because if it was just about us, we would just making sure that the people behind you also have a say, and if you have that power and that privilege and that drive to do that, do it for them, but also do it for yourself, do it for everyone behind you, because people who have paved the way for me to be here, standing and sitting here talking about this, is why I'm here. Yeah. Because people have paved the way for me.
Yeah, I always say that none of us walked through this door just like that. Somebody built that that door for me. I'm stuck on the wall. Somebody built that door for me to be able to walk through it, and I would not be sitting here interviewing people on my own show if it weren't for somebody else doing it before me. Okay, I'm going to play devil advocate for a minute. Or actually, this is more of I'm going to be naive for a second. Would you like it to get to the point where the word trans doesn't make a difference anymore? Where you're just woman, men and women?
For me personally, I think that we have a different experience than cis women. I think as trans women, we were assigned a certain sex at birth. However, we didn't identify with that sex. It's not to say that we're completely, we still live as women. I live my life as a woman. I'm still silenced when we're in a group of men. I'm still and I'm not just saying that that's something that women experience, but from me seeing and observing that, there is a wage gap difference. There is going to public spaces, and if you're with a guy, they're gonna pay more attention to him, and they're gonna offer him whatever service they need, and you're gonna be pushed to the side. You're basically his little puppet or his little accessory. And it's these are things that I've noticed, that I've experienced since I transitioned. So I forgot the question.
I guess I can rephrase it this way, but that makes sense because now you're visually, and I didn't know when I first came, which is, not that I was like, whoa, what's going on here? But you were wearing this really amazing dress that day that I came, so it was really cool. So even as a gay man, I was like, you go, girl. So I guess my question would be, how important is the word trans? Because for me, you're women. I see you as women. But how important is to put the word trans in the conversation? And I'm going to speak as an ignorant, not knowing the value of it. But why do you need it? You're a woman now, so just be a woman.
I think it kind of goes back to even gay men, or even lesbian women, or people who identify as bisexual. You have to have that word in front of it in order for them to understand and to kind of see your perspective as to where you're coming from. Because women do not experience the same stuff that trans women do. At the end of the day, a woman can be going out with a gentleman and you know, she's not ridiculed for being trans, or she's not outed for being trans, she's not called a man in a dress for being trans, you know, as opposed to trans women. These are things that affect us, you know. Women are getting killed at an alarming rate as well, but trans women are, I don't know, it's very complicated.
Disproportionate
Yeah,
amount?
it's a disproportionate amount. But yeah, I think it's important to have that trans narrative in there because it's telling our experiences as trans women. And that's how I feel.
Got it. Before I ask you the same thing, tell people where they can find you and again what you do.
Okay, so I was a patient navigator, but now I am. So basically, what a patient navigator was anyone who came in seeking services, seeking resources. I would connect them over to whatever it is that they may need, whether it was housing, emergency food banks, STI, STD testing, HIV testing. All of that good stuff. But now as a transgender coordinator, I'm overseeing the trans component and the programs here at the Wallace & Woodis Project, the trans support group. We finished our trans and assistance group as well. That was meeting once a week. And it was a diverse group level engagement that we talk about like empowerment, we talk about STIs, STDs, what it means to be your own advocate, how to find your voice. You know, so it was a leadership building program. But now that that's over with, I'm going to be probably launching and, you know, searching for other grants that we can potentially have here at the organization, so we can continue programs for transgender folks.
Nice.
So you can find me at the email that I have here at the Wallace & Woodis Project, which is angela.cristobal, ANGELA.CRISTOBAL at thewallaceandwoodisproject.com, or you can find me on Instagram, Lotus, LOTS_BUGG.
Well, I think that it's great to put your social information out there so that people can see how normal your life can actually be. Because people are like, so do you post a lot of gay stuff on? I'm like, I post my stuff online. I don't know if it's necessarily gay stuff. I'm like, eating tacos at my favorite place is not necessarily gay, but if you want to call them gay, so let's. Yeah, I do put my pinky up every time I eat a taco. Before we move on, somebody out there who is either thinking about starting the process, or a parent who is watching their child, what would you say to them?
I feel like for their children, or for teenagers, or for folks who are a little bit older, starting their transition, you know, just do it. You know, you can't keep living this I don't want to say lie because it's not a lie, but you don't want to keep living, like, you want to be living authentically, you want to be happy, you want to, like, if that's something that you have in mind, do it. You know, don't look back, and it's not going to be easy. You're going to experience a lot of shit going through that, but at the end of the day, it's going to be worth it, because at the end of the day, you're going to be happy with yourself. And for the parents out there, I think it's important for you to empathize and truly get to know your child. And on top of that, if you really love them and you really want to support them and you want to see them flourish and grow and empower themselves, then you have to accept them however it is that they are. Whether they're lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, like, you know, anything, however they identify, you have to support them, because ultimately, if you're not going to do it, then they're going to be out, and they're not going to, like, yeah, it's going to be a difficult road for them. So please empathize with your children and love them unconditionally.
Thank you. All right, so I know you guys got really excited when we were talking about the titles part. Who wants to go first?
Titles and
The trans, how important the trans title is.
Sure. So I think what I would add to that is that, so speaking, I guess, from my learning as a therapist in training, so it would be awesome if everybody could be equal and just, you know, the differences between us didn't matter. But of course, that's not the world that we live in. So I think that for me, thinking about the word trans, I think that there certainly are lots and lots and lots of overlaps. So for instance, my experience as a trans woman versus someone who's a cisgender woman, there's lots of things that do overlap. But I think, at least for me, thinking about my connection to the word trans is, in some ways, it is kind of almost erasing and makes me feel a little bit invisible, I think, to think about the idea of someone not associating my trans identity into how they see me, because for better or for worse, that's been my experience. And so, you know, like, for instance, my childhood was, you know, I had a lot of privilege, but my being a trans person, there was a lot of pain there. And to not include the word trans, sort of in how I describe myself, at least, it doesn't account for that. And to me, thinking about the idea of myself as being just a person but not also a trans person is a very different image, I think.
But I'm going to put it as gentle. I don't want to be rude, but do you think growing up as a white boy and everything that comes, all the privilege, we're talking about the word privilege, all the privilege that comes with it, do you feel that you had to, for lack of better words, return some of those privileges as you were transitioning, that some of those were taken away from you?
Sure. So I guess the caveat to that I would give, I was also, so I had cancer actually when I was 2.5 and when I was 6.
Oh, wow.
And so that also was a big sort of, was a big part of my childhood too. And so I felt like even, in some ways, just to give a caveat to that description, but I think it's important to come back to it, is that I, in some ways, I didn't have quite the same experience, I think, as a lot of my male peers, for instance. But I think there is a perception in some ways that, and I can only speak for myself, but thinking about people sort of, that's an argument that I've heard a lot, is why would you transition, like you'd be giving up all of these privileges. But I think, at least for me, thinking about it, I never thought of myself that way. It's almost like these were privileges that other people were giving me, but that I never identified with. So it's almost like, if someone gives you, $100, it's like, this is great, but like, why are you giving it to me? Like, this isn't mine. So it's very complicated. And I think that, for me, it was all of it. It goes back to authenticity. It's like, there's all these things that if I, for example, didn't transition, maybe my life would have been better, quote unquote, but it wouldn't have been authentic. It wouldn't have been me.
Would have been easier?
I think in some ways maybe it would have been. I mean, it's sort of the question of, for instance, do men, as people who have more privilege, generally speaking, is that easier than being a woman? And maybe in some ways it is, but I think for me at least, I feel like a broker in some ways, but that it goes back to authenticity. I see myself as a woman and as a trans woman, and that's the life that I have tried to live since transitioning. I
can dig that, yeah, because a lot of my privilege as a Latino man are based on my presence. If I show up in my boots with my cap and people are like, oh wow. But if I show up all in shorts, all dressed down, and more gay, then the approach people have toward me is different. So I have to find I have a big wardrobe, so we'll leave it at that.
Totally.
Yes, sir.
No, for me, like I was listening to Angela and the importance of that identity, and like listening to her, like that identity, and in a similar way we can identify, for example, migration experience as well. I was like, when you become a citizen, but do you start saying Mexican American? Or like if you go out and say like, oh well, I'm an American, but from where? Where are you really from? So it becomes that thing. It's like that identity attached to your migration experience becomes an essential part of who you are and how you identify and how you navigate a space. So I'm like, I am an immigrant. I am a Central American immigrant. So I became American citizen maybe like 2013, 14, and I still identify as Central American. I don't even identify as Salvadoran. I identify as Central American, just because I find that one, nationalistic ideas could be somewhat hurtful sometimes and dividing, and two, because we have power in numbers. And that identity, I'm encompassing every person, every folks from Central America as people that I, from my community, as one of my communities as well. The LGBT community, my other community, like everybody that has been oppressed or that has feel discriminated against or has feel left out, that's my community, that's our community, that's what we're here for. That's what we do, the work that we do. So it's important to acknowledge and also respect folks that don't want that identity attached to them. Well, it's very valid. So it's kind of like a present case by case. And the best thing you can do is like ask, respectfully ask, how do you identify, and make your best effort to respect that.
Because my dad's American, my mom's Mexican. So now that I became a citizen, I'm like, I'm actually a Mexican American. I was born in Mexico. Like, don't call me Latin, don't call me Hispanic. I'm Mexicano. I'm a taco eating, huarache wearing Mexicano, and like just own it. I speak Spanish and I love corridos, so there you go. there are, like, when I was growing up, I'm 47 now. When I was growing up, we didn't have places like this. My parents would not have acknowledged a place where they were going to help me, for lack of better, and using my Mexican as, las coterías, vas a andar ahí en las coterías más. And everything for them was, anything that was artistic, my dad just didn't approve of. To the parents, and if you can go down the line, to the parents, we're going to go back. Why should they just, I'm not going to say step aside, but open the doors for their kids a little bit? You know what I mean? Does that make sense?
I feel like parents, and I'm going to speak just on my parents, like, I'm an only child, and they gave this 9-pound baby at the hospital and with no instruction how to raise him. No more instruction than the Bible provided, of course. So, for me, in working with, in mental health and working with families, especially folks in foster care, sometimes parents don't know what to do because they were never taught, because they were never given the chance to learn. And for them, like, the main obligations for a parent is, like, to provide tools for your child to be able to fend for themselves when you're no longer here. So if you don't provide these tools, and for your kid, eventually you're going to be doing a disservice. And the first tool that you're supposed to give is love and support. Essentially, it's like, once you teach a person how to receive love and provide support, you are creating an amazing human being. So just for parents, it's like, be open, provide the love and support and the tools that LGBTQ plus folk need to thrive in the world.
Yeah.
Sure. So I can speak directly from what I'm learning in my psychology classes, for instance. It's that we sort of take it for granted, I guess, like childhood. It's like, it is what it is. It's part of our culture. But, like, literally the lessons that we learn from our parents from, like, when we're in the womb still, practically, those carry with us, right? And, like, if we're not supported in who we are, like, I first knew when I was trans, I couldn't identify it that way, but I knew when I was 4 years old. So, like, I was really young. Like, and I think a lot of kids, maybe not everybody, but at least kids really know who they are from a young age. And I think, it's totally makes a lot of sense that, if you're a parent for a kid who's, for instance, like, you have a kid who you understand to be male, and they say that that's not who they are, can be very jarring. Like, I can really understand the fear, I think, that a lot of parents feel. But that really just listening to your kid, and, I think we have a reflex to say, like, you're a kid, you might grow out of this, whatever it is. But just even, like, humoring them and entertaining, like, the idea of how they think they should be living differently than we currently are, I think makes a huge difference. And I think a lot of the folks who are, experiencing so much pain and discomfort and all of the other really negative emotions who are LGBT now, if a lot of us had more support from our parents when we were younger, I think the situation would be really different.
Yeah.
And so, like, parents, to the extent that, you can have, speaking directly to parents, to the extent that you can have empathy and just being curious about what, your kid may be needing from you or needing just to have in general, just listening, I think, is huge. It doesn't have to be a lot. It can just literally be listening to what they have to say.
And I'm going to change your question a little bit, because you did talk to the parents. You already left a message. But how was is it called a coming out moment with your parents? Because I know as a gay man, it was like, mine was very cliche. It was over Thanksgiving. So it's like, pass the mashed potatoes and, Mommy, I'm gay. See, here's the gravy. Yeah, no le den salsa. But how, I'm just using words, but how was your experience in letting your parents know where you were?
Excuse me. For me, it was very difficult at first because, as you folks mentioned earlier, that, I grew up as a Latino, I grew up Catholic, I grew up going to church on Sundays, every now and then, like, I did my first communion, and I was, like, baptized, It It was a mess. But, you know, I didn't know how to go about the process. But the easiest thing for me at the time was to come out as gay to my mom. And then 2 weeks later, I was just like, no, mama, there's a second surprise. I'm transgender.
Oh, 2 weeks later?
Yeah.
Wow, girl, you really laid it on
Oh,
there.
yeah, because like, for me, it was just like, no, this isn't who I am. Like, and at that time, like, I didn't know like how to navigate this. Like, no one sat down with me and said like, hey, Angela, you know, this is how it's gonna go down. This is what you have to do. Like, I just did it out of like just to do it, just to get out of the way. Because in my head, I was like, you know, if I'm not gonna do it now, I'm never gonna do it.
And you were how old again?
I was at the time I was 20 years old.
Wow.
Yeah, and imagine at that time, like everyone's going to community colleges, everyone's like, you know, working, and I was working at the time, but like, you know, everyone's like trying to find themselves outside, like to navigate employment, you know, to basically like save up because we need to purchase a house, right? These are things that haven't been imposed on us, you know, to have a car and all this stuff. But for me, it was just like finding myself, my sense of self, ultimately, you know. But yeah, like that was my process. My mom was, and I still remember like, to this day, like she was just like, oh, like what's gonna happen to you when you die? And she said it in Spanish. She's like, ¿Qué es lo que te va a pasar cuando te mueras? And for me, that hit, like that struck a chord because in my head I'm like, well, I don't know, like you know, she's just like, she thought I was gonna go to hell. And,
oh, okay.
You know, and she's just like, oh, you know, like you can't do that. It's a sin. It's a phase. You're gonna grow out of it. So I understood that. Excuse me, that it was a process for her, and it took me a while to understand that. You know, because you hold this resentment towards your parents for like, I'm over here opening up my heart for you, and yet here you are kind of disregarding my experience, my life, what I'm telling you and saying what I'm going to be doing is wrong. You know, so I held a lot of resentment, but then afterwards I came to realize it's a process. You know, it's not going to be easy. It's not going to change overnight, you know. So it was a process for them too. It was a transition for them.
Yeah.
Because, you know, they grew up, you know, raising a boy, and they didn't expect something to happen and be like, hey, you know what, mom, like this is in my life, I'm going to change completely, and like whether you accept it or not, it's going to be something that I'm going to do, and like, you know, it's not easy for them. And on top of that, like my parents, they don't come from education. They went to like 2nd grade, 3rd grade, and afterwards they started working, so they didn't have access to like, you know, what is transgender mean? What does gay even mean? What is LGBTQ? You know, so I had to teach my parents, and I had to teach my mom. I had to like give her these life lessons that like, mom, if you don't call me by she, or you don't call me by Angela, when we're on the street, when we're out shopping, something can happen to me. Do you want something to happen to me? So you have to use like kind of scare tactics to do that, you know, and it's kind of like I have to remind her every day, like, mom, Angela, you know, that was a process within itself. But, you know, it's
the re-education of Angela's parents.
There you go.
There's the title for your next book. I want credits. But yeah, you know, I totally agree with that because my parents are in a similar situation. They were very young when they went to school and they stopped. And my dad's fears, because he worked in a lot of migrant jobs with all men, there was always a gay man in the crowd, and he would tell stories of how they got abused and their money was taken and they were treated as second-class citizens among the migrant workers that worked. And my mom, when I came out, she was very sad, but for a long time she had come up to me and said, you know, what's going on? What's up with you? What's happening? And I would have like, no, everything's fine, everything's great. So when I was outed, so when she found out, she was hurt because she was like, all this time I've been asking you, and you've like lied to me, and now you're coming to me, because she was the last one to find out. She's like, now you're coming to me to stand in your corner, but you've been lying to me all this time. Like, I can't trust you. And I was like, oh my God, like my mom just doesn't trust me. That was her pain. Her pain wasn't that I was gay. She knew. Moms always know. But she didn't know. Stay on. But her thing was like, I'm more upset that you were lying to me than you were gay. So, okay, so we run out of time. Last comments, last words, anything you want to get off your chest, guys?
No, just thank you for having us, and just everybody that's out there that needs help, encourage yourself to go and find it. And we take advantage of the resources that folks have fought very hard and the trans folks of color work very hard to get us here. So take advantage of that, help others, uplift each other, and just be yourself.
All right, and remind them again, Julio, who you are, your title, and how they can find you, and what you can do for them.
My name is Julio Ramos Beltran. I'm a wellness specialist at the Memorias. You can find me at Julio, Julio, Ramos, Ramos, at twlmp.org, and I can connect you to services of testing, get you involved in the community, give you trainings to become a peer advocate, and invite you to the support group every Tuesday, 7:30, right here in Highland Park, 5619, Monte Vista Street, 90042, every Tuesday, 7:30.
And you have Spanish groups as well?
We don't have Spanish group, but most of our folks speak Spanish, so we try to be as accommodating as possible, but the topics and everything is made in English.
Okay, cool.
Final thoughts. Thank you so much for having us. This is really great. I really enjoyed the conversation a lot. I think to anybody out there, listening to this or watching us, I would say that you're not alone. There's a lot of other people who are going through the same things that you're going through. Maybe not exactly the same, but who can relate to the pain that you're experiencing. And don't be afraid to ask for what you need. I think that was something that was really hard for me at first, was to accept help from other people. But I think everybody has a voice, and don't let anybody take it away from you. And there's lots of people who can give you help if you need it and are willing to take it.
Awesome.
For me, what was the question?
Any last words, and who you are and how they can find you?
Angela Cristobal. I'm the transgender program coordinator here at the Memorias Project. I already mentioned my social media, so just go back.
And we'll have it on the page so you can find it.
But
I think I'm following you already, so people just,
So once you add that,
tired.
I think the most important thing is just to be true to yourself, be authentic to yourself, be loving, be kind to yourself, because that's the most important thing. Make sure that your well-being is okay. If you need help, go seek some services. There are a lot of services out there, especially here in LA County. I'm not sure how far it is, but if you can go to a local support group, go look for someone who you may identify with. Is key. Go find role models. Find people who are going to uplift you, who are going to push you to do better, who are going to push you to do great things, and then, everything else will fall in place. Not everyone has it together. I don't have my shit together. It may seem like I do, but I don't. I'm struggling every day to get by and to do my own thing, but at the end of the day, I'm here. So yeah, that's my advice.
That's your. So you before we go, I know it's that last question, but something you said triggered a question in me. And for those of you watching the show for the first time, people who follow me know I never have a script. I never write anything down. What does Angela need to get to the next level in life?
What don't I need? No, I'm kidding. For me, oh my gosh, the next level in life. I think for me, finding clarity and acceptance within myself. And I'm in the process of doing that. It's not easy, but I'm doing it day by day. I'm going to enroll to see a mental health therapist soon, because that's something that I need to do in order for me to get past a lot of the baggage and a lot of the negative things that I've had to experience in my life and internally that I've just held on to. So I just need to learn to let go and just get to the next point, so then I can get a lot of things done after that.
Yeah. Jordy?
Sure. I think for me, I do tend to be an introvert, and I'm very sort of in my head a lot. I think it's being able to, in some ways, get out of my own way. That's been a problem for me for most of my life, and I'm sure it will be for a long time to come. But being comfortable with myself and just giving myself the confidence that I have everything in me that I need to have. I just need to actually be, to be willing to take it and to just run with it.
Awesome.
For me, it's give myself the love and encouragement that I need to achieve what I need to achieve. I want to go back to school, and I want to get healthier and be better. So I need to practice the love that I want to give to the community and apply it to myself, because I need to teach folks how I need to be treated and what I need. And if I cannot do that for myself, I won't be able to teach that to anybody else. So it is important also that for me, and also continue to work to uplift my community.
Awesome. Well, I want to thank you guys for opening your doors and congratulate you. It is extremely, and I know this from all my years of advocating, it is extremely difficult to sit down in front of a camera with somebody you don't even know and share your life story and ask questions that can be very personal. Even though we are in the community service industry, we still want to keep a personal life, but then when you are part of that community, there's a blur between personal and private. So thank you for the courage to sit with me today and share your, not just your professional life, but your personal life. I'm sure a lot of people watching this will benefit from your story. So thank you. I'm always touched by people who don't even know me and are willing to share. In the car, I'm like, suckers, got them. But,
give me that.
yeah. So again, just for final address, phone number of the agency, and what do you guys offer?
So the phone number is 323-257. So how about we just go with the email?
Yes.
Or the website. I'm so sorry about that. I'm all over the place. www.thewallasmemoriasproject.com, and that's all one word, thewallasmemoriasproject.com or .org.
.org.
Sorry. And I am Angela Cristobal, transgender coordinator, and the services that we offer here for trans folks specifically are support groups. We have a support group that meets every last Wednesday of the month. The next one is going to be like, I'm not too sure what I'm going to do. It's coming up, but we're going to have one. Everyone's invited. Anyone who identifies under the trans umbrella, you can be trans-masculine, trans-feminine, non-binary, et cetera, et cetera. And then we also do referrals out to like different agencies, whether you need STD testing, HIV testing, Hep C, if you need mental health services, behavioral health, food banks. Even if you want to just come in here and talk to me about your transition, what you're experiencing, I'm all ears, I'm open. Just a judgment-free zone, so feel free to stop by.
Cool. For the LGBT community?
For the program specific of the Viagna Project, specifically for gay and bisexual queer men, the ages 18 through 24, we offer mental support, HIV testing, work groups, opportunity to create community, as well as support groups every Tuesday at 7:30 here at the Highland Park location, 5619 Monte Vista Street, Los Angeles, California 90042.
Awesome.
That I remember.
There you go.
I remember my mom's phone number.
It's hard because everything's on ourselves. It's hard.
I can speed dial, but we can make sure we can get it. Huh? But nonetheless, we offer these support groups, and as well as we can work with faith community. If you feel like you're part of a faith community that needs training on HIV and how to be more inclusive, please let us know. We do community partner training as well.
Cool. And Jordy, are you available for one-on-one chats with people if they email you?
Sure, sort of unofficially.
Yeah.
In about 3 years, once I finish my school for being a therapist, I'll actually be a licensed therapist. But at the moment, you can reach me at my email address, which is jserwin, JSERWIN, at antioch.edu, Antioch, ANTICOCH.
We'll get it and we'll put it on there. So for all you know, guys, you can find all the information on there. So I want to thank Julio, Jordy, and Angela for being on the show today. Thank you guys for listening. Again, I want to thank my producer, Mr. Kevin Moyers, for all his help and support. Thank you, sir. Inviting all of you to join us at abnormalentertainment.com, where you can find all the shows on the network. Please follow me at Put It Together Podcast on Facebook. You can also find the videos on Daniel G. Garza on YouTube. Check us out at Instagram at Little Mexican Productions. And where else am I? Twitter. Yes, on Twitter. So you can find me at Daniel G. Garza on Twitter. All that stuff's on the pages, so go check us out. The website. You people have asked me about the Little Mexican Productions website. Not up yet. Yeah, it's still under construction. So if you want to help out a poor podcaster put his website together, get in touch with me. For now, this is Daniel Garza saying, hey, put it together.
This is how I put it together. This is how I put it together. This is how I put it together.
Subscribe to Put It Together on iTunes, Stitcher, and at abnormalentertainment.com/putittogether. Find Put It Together on Facebook and tweet Daniel at Lil Messican, LILMESICAN. And for more podcasts, comics, books, movies, and more, head to abnormalentertainment.com.
You've been listening to the Abnormal Entertainment Network.